Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig, the post-election edition. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is where we talk about firearms policy, politics, culture, you name it. We're talking about right here on Coffee with Craig. So please take a moment to like and share this program so that your friends can join in the conversation. Also, please remember to go to fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. If you go there, we've got all sorts of cool stuff for you, whether it's T-shirts, whether it's hoodies, whether it's coffee mugs, a whole bunch of different stuff to help you show your support for the Second Amendment and actually support it, as every penny that you spend there goes right back into the fight for our right to keep and bear arms. That's fpcgear.com. All right, let's get into the postmortem, shall we? It's yesterday was election day. And we now know exactly where things are at election-wise. And I kind of wanted to just talk with y'all a little bit about what that means for our right to keep and bear arms and for gun rights in this nation and in some states. First of all, let's just talk about what was and what was not. The media, the mainstream media, as well as the Democratic Party really, or the anti-gun party, shall we say, really went out of their way to try and get folks to believe that there was going to be this massive blue wave that was going to overtake every state, that was going to lead them into taking over a majority of the governorships, a majority in both houses of Congress, and repudiate President Trump. Instead, what we got was a little bit more of a purple puddle. The Democrats would wind up taking the House of Representatives, while at the same time you had Republicans actually increase their majority in the Senate. And that was really kind of the big story about what came out of overall out of this election, was that really kind of the mixed message that was sent to voters. Because what they said was, well, we don't. In one case, they like the Republicans. In the other case, they seem to like the Democrats. And I'll give you here a great example. This is the kind of the breakdown and how things broke down for the House. This is basically out of 413 of 435 seats that were declared. This is via Associated Press. Democrats had 220 seats. Republicans had 193. In essence, Democratic Party is basically going to be the new majority. It's been projected that they're going to take up to 33 seats in that particular House. On the Senate side, and unfortunately, it looks like I think I grabbed the wrong graphic here. Let me see if I can grab the right graphic. Unfortunately, though, on the other side, it looks like on the Senate side, it looks like Republicans actually did a lot better. Republicans being the party that is more supportive of the Second Amendment, shall we say. I wouldn't necessarily call them totally the pro-gun party, but needless to say, they tend to be a little bit better here. Okay, so here's the graphic now for those particular races. And what you'll notice here is Republicans now, they're projecting, at least at this point, it was 51 seats, Democratic Party 43 seats. So they actually increased and widened the margin of majority there in the Senate for the Republican Party. So in the end, what does that mean, at least at the federal level? Well, what it means is this. It means that we will not get pro-Second Amendment legislation that will be coming out of Congress. It absolutely positively will not happen. The opportunity to do so has been squandered. And sadly, I don't blame the House, because it wasn't the House that squandered it. The House actually passed at least some pro-gun legislation. They sent it over to the Senate, and the Senate did absolutely nothing with it. The Senate did absolutely nothing with the majority that they were given, and they're rewarded by expanding their majority. Having said that, you're not going to see any of that legislation. What you are going to see starting to come out of the House is all of the common sense gun control ideas that the anti-gun left has been pushing. and you're going to see it. You're going to see it be proposed. You're going to see it try. They're going to try to push it through, and they're going to try and get it over to the Senate. Now, the challenge is that even in the Senate, you have some Republicans who, what's the word I'm looking for, who are not opposed to common sense gun confiscation measures. Yeah, you heard me right. Common sense gun confiscation measures, which in the end will mean that there may be some Republicans with whom a deal can be made in order to get some of this legislation passed. So we're going to have to be on our P's and Q's. One, we are going to have to fight legislation in the House, no doubt. Number two, we're going to have to make sure that we keep certain Republicans on the reservation in the Senate. So it means it's going to be some work here over the next couple of years. Now, the good news out of all of this is that because Republicans increase their majority in the Senate, it means that things like judicial confirmations, key cabinet post confirmations, in particular, once again, as it relates to the Second Amendment, are going to still be in play. The Trump appointment machine is still going to move, which, by the way, for us is a very, very good thing, because overall, the justices that have been put out there, that have been nominated by the Trump administration, have been quite good. In fact, it's probably the only really pro-gun thing that has come out of the Trump administration thus far are the judicial appointments as a whole. There's at least one I know in the Ninth Circuit that's questionable, and I know some people are questioning some of the others. But overall, it's been good, and it's been the only really pro-Second Amendment thing, major pro-Second Amendment thing that we've seen come out of this administration. Hopefully, that will change. Now that all he really can do is going to have to be appointments, as well as executive orders and things that he can do along those lines. So that will be interesting to see. The other interesting thing of note has to do with the changes in governorships. Democrats actually picked up 4 gubernatorial seats. Now, Republicans have held a significant majority of top executive spots in states across the country, in the majority of states across the country. So this is actually a really big deal to a degree. One of the key states is the state of Nevada. The state of Nevada, 1, is a swing state, but 2, it's a state that's seen by many as a pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment state. Now, it's also a state where you've seen the anti-gun community is pushing to help build the West Coast wall of gun control, where they're trying to Californicate the gun laws there in the state of Nevada. And now with a governor who will be amenable to the Californication of Nevada's gun laws, you're going to start to see an increase in anti-gun legislation that is going to be proposed, because they only meet every other year. So this year is going to be a very big year in Nevada for gun legislation, and we are on the ground there in the state of Nevada. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Also, that in these 4 states, in these 4 new states, it's important to note that those governors will be in control of redistricting in 2020 and 2021. 2021. They're going to be in control of redistricting, meaning you could see some changes in congressional makeups because of it. You could see some changes in state legislatures because of it. It's a pretty big deal, and it could have potentially long-term effects. So that is actually a very big deal. I think the fact that Republicans held control of Georgia, they've held control of Florida, 2 traditionally pro-Second Amendment states, I think once again bodes well for the Second Amendment in those particular states, even though you're seeing a dramatic increase in those who oppose gun rights in those states. In particular, in Florida, it's kind of interesting. You're starting to see a legislature that in particular with Republicans, where you're starting to see cracks in their support of the Second Amendment. Not all of them, not even most of them, but some of them are starting to cave on issues relating to the Second Amendment. But luckily, you have a governor who, at least as a candidate, was definitely more supportive of the Second Amendment than was the previous governor, Governor Scott. It'll be real interesting to see how that Senate race shakes out, as they're probably going to be going to a recount. So, folks, all of this, in the end, what does this mean for our right to keep and bear arms? What does this election mean? Well, it means, first and foremost, that we've got our work cut out for us. I don't know exactly how the anti-gun candidates, the Bloomberg candidates, fared. I think once we have a more opportunity to do more of a post-mortem on that, we'll find out exactly how the $100 million that was spent by Michael Bloomberg, how that actually impacted overall Congress and various gubernatorial races. So that's going to be one thing that we're going to check out. The other thing that it's going to mean is that we're going to have a lot of fighting to do. We are most definitely going to have a significant amount of fighting that we're going to have to do in order to get Congress to, one, not pass anti-gun legislation, but number two, to hold, if they do pass it, to get the Senate to stay where they need to be. There's going to be a lot of talk about, once again, common sense gun control. And the state of Nevada in particular is going to be a state that we're going to have to keep an eye on. It's a state where we're going to be need to doing a lot of fighting, because it's not just going to impact their gun rights there in Nevada, but it's also going to impact what the national elections, because once again, Nevada being a swing state, what is that going to mean for the presidential election in 2020? What is that going to mean for redistricting going forth for the next decade in the 2020s? What is that going to mean? So Nevada is going to start to be a rather pivotal state for gun rights as a whole, not just for as well as, by the way, it being a bellwether for the west of the country, because you've got obviously the urban center there in Southern Nevada, around Las Vegas, the urban center, which is the control was pretty much got a lot of the control, where a lot of the anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment fervor comes from, but it's going to affect a lot of the rural state that is out there. Anyway, that's kind of my picture as I see it right afterwards. I think we have some stuff to celebrate, because I think that the anti-Trump backlash never happened. And I really think in the end we're going to find out that the anti-gun money really didn't have the effect that they thought it would. But I also believe that how this Democratic majority now in the House goes forward and how we respond to them is going to play a major role in our ability to fight for our right to keep and bear arms, and whether or not that's something that's going to go forward. The challenge I have, and I know a lot of you out there love Donald Trump, but Donald Trump wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. He's a deal maker. And if he believes that he can cut a deal, he'll give something up. And I'm not 100% convinced that our gun rights are not for sale. I know some of you out there, I know some of y'all are like, yeah, no, Craig, that's not going to happen. I have Arnold Schwarzenegger here in California as an example of a model of a pop star who decides to get into politics, who's driven by being popular and being liked, and wanting to have a legacy of getting stuff done. I have that example of him caving, and I want to be convinced, but I'm just not, and I believe we need to hold the president accountable. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for liking and sharing this program and telling your friends about the Firearms Policy Coalition. We are the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them, or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.